practicing on all the topics like the Power Query site that we have covered in here. The data model is done. So this is a new sheet which I have imported from the different source, and come back to this Power BI report. So we have this model, and we also have talked about the different options that what we have with the Power Query, right? And we have also seen the relationships and everything we have seen, right? Any questions from anyone so far, like in terms of the referential integrity concept, or if you have any questions on the append concept or a merge join concepts? All good? We are good so far? Okay, very good. So we are good with the transformations, right? So basically, like, what is a Power Query? Power Query is for transforming the data from one state to another state. It helps us to transform the data. Okay, and that Power Query is a separate editor, and it will be open, and we can perform all kind of transformations that are available with Power Query, and we can save and apply those changes. Once the changes are done, we can save and apply the changes. Okay. Clear, right? So now let's talk about before we go on to this visualization side. Before we go on to this visual, why? Because this is the other one that we have. This is the place where we create the visuals, right? This is the canvas where we create the visuals. And before we go on to this one, let's talk about another important topic in Power BI, that is nothing but your DAX. That is DAX. So what is a DAX? Basically, DAX stands for data analysis expression. Data analysis expressions. So why do we need it? Why do we need DAX? So it is not always that we go and use a relational database, and that relational database we can use as a source for our reporting. It can be a structured data, or it can be a non-structured data, and it can be a composite model as well. If you remember, we talked about that some set of a data we will pull it from a relational database called example SQL Server, and some data sets we pull the data from an Excel. Another source sets, for suppose, like it comes from the flat file. Assume that these are the three different sources are for the report that we are building, and we wanted to create the relationship, and we wanted to generate some calculations by using the data between these two different data sets, heterogeneous sets. You're clear, right? Let's take an example. This is our model. This is our model. And in that model, I have one data set which I pulled from the, for suppose, this is the table which I pulled from the text file or a flat file. Okay. Another set of the data which is coming from, let's say this is a sales table. This is sales table, and it is coming from SQL Server database. Okay. And also like we have another set of data. We have another set of the data which is coming from Excel sheet, and this is like a product data. Give me a moment. Give me a moment. Yeah, sorry. So this is another set of the data. Let's say it is coming from the customer table. So we need to have, let's say there is a data, there is a report which I need to generate. I need to generate the data by the sales, product wise sales. So how I can get it? If I have a relationship between these two, then I can get the product wise sales. So with the help of this, I mean, when we wanted to, so these kind of a calculations, can I do these calculations, grouping and everything in a single database? No. If it is, if I need to do that, what I need to do first, I need to load the data into a SQL Server database table. Then after I need to pull the data, I perform all the calculations and pull the data into the reporting. So this creates a lot of maintenance issues, and generally the companies won't allow it. So for that reason, for performing any kind of a calculations, expressions, basically analytical expressions, let's say, uh, take an example. I have some filters. I have some filters in the report. This is an example. Let's take an example. I have some filters in the report, drop downs. So the drop downs are the product names. One filter is called product name. Another filter is called the calendar dates. Okay, so based on the selection of these dates and or the products, I should filter out with the top 10 records. So this is something called dynamic in nature, top 10 record. This is something in dynamic in nature. Why? Because based on the selection, we wanted to pull the top 10 record, top 10 sales records. So how you can do it? This you cannot do it with the SQL side. This is something dynamically has to be generated in the Power BI side. So with that reason, we go and use DAX, data analysis expressions. So, and coming talking about DAX, what exactly it is like a programming language. It is just like a programming language as like our SQL. So basically, why do we use it? It important. Calculated columns, measures, and custom tables. You know, you can create custom tables with the help of a DAX. We have some functions called calendar auto. So these are the some of the DAX functions, you know. These are some of the functions. With the help of these functions, you can create tables as well, custom tables as well, that generates the data for you, that generates the dates for you. Why? Because if you see in this report, the report which you have created, we have this calendar table. Okay, it is not necessary that every report, every company will maintain the calendar table, but you need to use that calendar table in your Power BI reporting. So what you can use it, you can simply use these calculations in your functions in your Power BI report using these DAX functions, and you can generate the data. You can generate the data as how you are seeing here for this calendar. Okay, so how we can do it? See what we can do. If you see here we have all the numbers. Okay. So here we have all the numbers. And with the help of a calculated columns, we can generate every column from here. And we can exactly generate as how it is displaying here. We can do that. So we can generate this ID number. So with the help of a calendar, our calendar auto functions, we can generate the numbers, we can generate the dates, and then after we can create the calculated columns to derive all these columns. We can derive all these columns. Okay, so we will see that. So what exactly now? So and coming to this, DAX. So basically, like as like a programming language, DAX provides is a collection of functions as like SQL, and definitely right, every language will provide the operators, plus, minus, multiplication, division, that can be used in formulas. So the expressions are nothing but formulas or expressions to calculate or return one or more values. So what it is? DAX is a calculation. DAX is an expression. So how the expression can be built? With the help of functions, one or two functions, one or more functions. And we can also use the operators. We can also use the operators here. Got it? Any questions from anyone? So this is something like a DAX is really, really important in Power BI. So once you are clear with this DAX concept, right? So then it would be very easy for you to understand, like to write down different kind of analytical expressions in Power BI. So it is not complex one. It is as like as what we are doing in SQL, but the language in writing is little bit different. So mostly like you will see all the aggregated functions, that what we have seen in SQL. What is that? Count, sum, and average, max, min. So there is nothing new for you. Everything you know, right? Everything you know, all these aggregated functions you know. So, but DAX also provides some additional functions that we will learn. So what is that? Sum x. When it is coming to summation, we do have an option of do have a function called sum x. And similarly, count a. If you are really familiar with the Excel, these functions are not new for you. Why? Because DAX is not a new language which came into this market, IT market, with Power BI. This is there from many years with Excel. The formulas that what we use or what we write with Excel, they are nothing but DAX. So all these functions, all the functions that you are seeing here, they are already available in Excel. So the Microsoft has just utilized the concept of these expressions, these functions into the Power BI. Okay, so we will see like what is the difference between sum and sum x, and what is count a function. Everything we will see. Okay, so now talk about calculated columns. So very important. And even in the interviews are also they ask like what is the difference between calculated columns and measures. We call it as a measure, calculated measures as well. Okay, calculated columns and calculated measures. Okay. So when we talk about calculated columns are basically these are used when we want to perform row by row operation, row by operation, row by row calculation, row by row calculation. Let's see an example. Do we have I think we have created many tables. So when you right click on any of these data sets, when you right click on any of these data sets, you will be enabled with the new column and new measure options. They are nothing but you are going to create the calculated columns or the calculated measures with the help of a DAX. With the help of a DAX. And if you do not want to use this option, or else if you are not sure about that option, you can also use this new column as well. This also you have new column, new table, and new measure. Here also you have the options to create the calculated columns. When I click on the new column, it will open a window for us to write the DAX expressions. If you see here, here you have enabled with this window. You can even enlarge it if you want. Okay. And this is the place where you can create the DAX expressions. Okay. So the column name I will give, let's say I will full address. And what I will do, I will combine these two addresses. Okay. Address one. So if you see here, the moment I started typing, the similar way how we used to get in SQL, we are getting this intelligence. This is a drop down or a pop up that we are getting it out. So what is that? It will give you all the tables. Let's say if I remove this one, it will give us all the functions. If you see all the functions which are available. Okay. And if I type something like address, the column names, this is something called column names. So all the columns from all the data sets, it will give us. Why? Because it is not that we can use only these table columns. We can also use the other columns from the other tables as well. So it is giving us the column names, address, and when you wanted to select this address 2 or address 1, then you need to select that one and have to click the tab button. So once it is done, once you're done with this calculation, then we have to select this right button. So what will happen with that? The function or the expression will be evaluated. The expression will be evaluated. Seems like there is some issue. Again, issue with the data. Cannot convert of type to number. So what is this number? Or else Okay. So actually, I wanted to give you with these two examples. So concatenate is one of the example. Concatenate is one of the example in Power BI that concatenates your string types. So even that plus operator also works when you concatenate, when the both sides of your operator is like a strings, then definitely you know that how it works in SQL. Exactly similarly, it works in DAX as well. So we do have a concatenate function in SQL. This is not new. So what it is doing, it is concatenating the two columns. It is concatenating the two columns and giving the results. So if you see here, what it is doing, it is doing the calculations row by row. It is performing the expressions row by row and giving the values to us. So that's the reason. What is that? So we are seeing this one, right? We are seeing this one, and it is getting added to the table. It is getting added to the table. So it gets added physically to the table, to the report. So that's the reason we are utilizing the space. The space, when we talk about the space, that is very important. Why? Because when you go to the real time, we will be loading with millions or sometimes the billions of the records into the table. So if you remember, like when we talk about the first day in the Power BI session, we have gone through the Microsoft site and we have seen that capacity. What is the maximum size that a Power BI report can have when we procure the different licenses? Power BI Pro, what is the limitation? Power BI Premium, what is the license? What is the limitation? And premium per user, premium capacity user. So all the stuff, all the detailed information we have seen, right? So that's the reason when you're creating a calculated column, you need to also think about that whether I can achieve this with the help of a measure or not. Why do you need to think? Why? Because certain requirements, you can build those requirements or you can generate those expressions either with DAX measure or with a calculated column. So that's the reason. Do not get confused. So but what is the advantage with the calculated column? You can see the data. Why? Because it is gets created in the database, in the reporting database, I mean to say, in the Power BI reporting side, not in the database. So let's say you are pulling this table from a database and you are creating the calculated columns, and you may think that these columns will also get created in the database tables. No, that will not be created. These are limited to the Power BI window. These are limited to the Power BI report. These are limited to the Power BI. Whatever the calculations, what are the calculated columns, measures, and everything that you are creating, they're totally limited to the Power BI report only. They are not going to impact anything to your database table structure. Okay. So coming back to
quick question.
Yeah, go ahead.
So these DAX columns that we are creating, can we create them using two tables or only just one table columns?
No, we can create using two tables.
Oh, okay.
We can create. That's why we have the relationship, right? In the dot model. So that is how the structure comes up. I mean the workflow. So first what we will do, we will establish the relationship between all the tables here.
Okay.
Then after we'll come back here. We'll come back and we'll do all the transformations. And also if we wanted, we can create the DAX. It is not mandatory. DAX is not a mandatory thing that every report will be having should have a calculated column or a measure.
Yeah, exactly.
Why we are talking about is because we wanted to know in and out of the tool.
Yep, exactly. Yeah.
Okay. So that is like how we can create the calculated columns. So let's go back to that column again. Where is that customer table? Yeah. Full address. So if you see here, this column got created. Yeah, we'll come to that. That is very important definition. A difference between when we talk about the calculated columns and measures. We'll talk about it. So full address. So you are seeing that this got created. And if you see here, this is the symbol that you can see for a calculated columns. Okay, so kind of an expression that it is giving here fx. So that is what your calculated column. Let's say if you wanted to modify something to this one, if you wanted to modify this one, and if you wanted to add a phone number or anything, that again you can do it. Okay, so or occupations or anything, any columns that you wanted to add, that it can take it off. And if you see again, so what it is saying, it is throwing an error for me. What is saying? Using concatenate function, we can concatenate only 2 strings at a time. So how I can do it? If I wanted to add the occupation to here, how I can do it? Either I need to concatenate, I need to use another concatenate function, right? This will be one first string, another one will be next string, occupation. So this is how I can achieve it. So, but I want you all to explore that one. Let's say if I have a 3 or 4 columns, how we can concatenate all the string types. Okay, there are different ways, not a single way. There are different ways of achieving this one. So this again, we can achieve it, and you can again give a space to that one. Everything we can do it. The formatting changes. See, I got added with this occupation to this full address. Okay, so but with the help of a concatenate function, we can join or we can concatenate only 2 columns, only 2 texts at a time. So that's the reason what I have done. I've created another calculated column, either have created another calculated column to add the third column that I have in my list. So let's say, for suppose if I have a 5 columns, then am I going to use this concatenate function those many number of times? No, right? I should not, right? That is not an ideal approach. Why? Because every function that we use, it is cost to the performance of your Power BI report. So we need to be careful, and we need to be very good in using a reliable solution. So when you can do it again on the SQL side, what we talked about, the same concept, same funda. So when you know in and out of all the functions, all the properties, all the features, all the commands, then only we can come up with the different approaches. When we wanted to delete the duplicate records in the table, what we have seen the different approaches. One by using the ranking functions to delete the records. Another approach is by directly using the group by clause and having count of greater than. That also gives the duplicate records, right? So for getting one requirement, we have a multiple approaches. So similarly, like here again, the same thing for getting this, getting it done, like, or concatenating the different strings, the 2 string columns into 1 string column. Definitely we have a different approaches. Okay, even you can try with that plus operator as well. Why? Because somehow it is not working here, but definitely it will work, and you can try with a different data set too. I will share some other data sets also for your practice today, and you can do it. Okay, so coming back to the calculated columns. So what we talked about, so calculated columns, what we have seen there, that we have seen, right? Calculated columns added to the table as a column. So why we are talking about calculated columns are adding to the table as a column? So we will see why we are talking about. So why? Because that won't happen in this case of a measures. So that is where the difference comes into picture. And we will also talk about very important concept in DAX is filter context and row context. Filter context and row context. We will talk about that. So once we talk about those concepts, then it would be very easy for you to understand, and can very easily you can deal with DAX. So with that, what we have seen, we also understood, since this gets created, or added to the table as a column. So definitely calculated column values are stored in the Power BI report, right? So what is the extension of a Power BI report? .pbix. Power BI extension, Power BI extension. Okay. So this is the every file that you create. Let's say text file. When you save a text file, what will happen? It will be saved with .txt. If you save an Excel file, how it will be stored? It will be either XLS or XLSX. So every file will be having the extension. So similarly, Power BI file will be having the extension. Every file or every report that you create, that will be saved with .pbix file. Yep. Yeah. So I want you to practice on that part. I mean, do it as a text, as an exercise for it. Okay. So the calculated columns that will be stored in the Power BI file. So when we talk about the store, so the definitely what it is internally conveying to us. So it is definitely taking the space. Each calculated column will increase the file, and very important, this very important. So what is happening? It is not just increasing the space that is used in the file. It is also increases. Let's say this report is built with import option. We have seen, right? Import option, import mode. What the import mode will do? Will import the entire data into your Power BI report. It will import entire data into our Power BI report. So let's say there is a Power BI report which is imported with the 5 columns, and it is taking 5 minutes to refresh when you schedule this report in your server. But when you created a calculated columns, let's say you have created 5 more calculated columns by using these columns, and by joining or by using some kind of a DAX functions, and you have created, and the total 10 columns. So definitely the refresh time. So definitely it will take time, right? So first it has to load the data into the actual columns. Then after it has to perform the calculations and generate the results. That's how the refresh will end. So definitely it will increase the space. It will increase the space, and it will also increase the time that it requires to perform the refreshing. So the scheduler will take the time to refresh the report. So this is what the calculated column is. So we have seen like what is a calculated column. It generates row by row data. It creates a separate column. It creates a column, separate column to the table, right? It adds as a new column to the table, and that's the reason it also increases the space that we have in the Power BI report. So every calculated column that we create definitely will add a space or increase the space to your Power BI report. Increase the space to your Power BI report. And also not only that, since we are using these calculated functions, these functions DAX expressions, so once the data got loaded from the source by for these line addresses and other columns that which are directly coming from the source, then once this data got loaded, then again it has to perform these calculations, and for that reason it takes time to refresh the entire report. So this is all about a calculated column. So any questions from anyone on this calculated columns before we move on to the calculated measures? So let's talk about the measures. Probably then you will get a clear picture, and also you will come up with the questions. So once you understand what is measure, probably like you may come up with what is the difference exactly, and at the same time you may come up with the questions again. Okay. So what is a measure? So measures, the term, I'm sure we already talked about when we are talking about the data warehousing, data modeling concepts, right? Measures generally we see in the fact table. What is a measure? Is nothing but a quantity. A quantity. It can be a sales amount, it can be a tax amount. It is basically a number. Measures are nothing but the numbers, in short. So with that, it is clear that definitely we will not see these kind of strings in a measure. So basically, what is a measure? We will not see all these strings. We will always see the numbers only, right? So let's say what I will do, I will pull the sales. Let's say I wanted to know the total sales by customer or by product. So then in that case, I can go with any of the aggregated function to find out the measure value. So that is nothing but our measure. So what is that? Measures are calculated dynamically at runtime or on demand, I would say. So if you see here, measures are calculated on demand or dynamically at runtime. So what is that? Let's say I have created a measure by using an aggregated function. I have not provided any information. I just used a sum function. On top of the sales. Okay. So this is my measure. I will give the name measure as total sales. That's it. So what will happen? First of all, this will not be created. When I do this, the same fashion, I will right click on it. I will click on the new measure and I will use the DAX expression window and will create the measure. But what is the difference between calculated column and a calculated measure? It will not add to the disk space. It will not add anything to the disk space of the Power BI file. I mean to say it will not be created. It will be created, but it will not use any columns or it will not use any space in the Power BI file. It will not use any space in the file, Power BI file. So the other difference is, other feature with measure is our calculated columns are calculated based on the filters that are used by the report. Measures are calculated on the filters. I told you, right? Let's say, let's create. You can all hear me, right?
Yes, Mani.
Okay, perfect. So let's say take an example of this superstore. Do we have a sales and city-wide sales? Okay, so let's go to this superstore itself and I will go to this section and I will first create a measure. So this will be my total sales amount. Okay, and for which I will use some function, and the moment I use the bracket here and I'm getting populated with all the So I'm getting populated with all the information. If you see here, and I'm creating these sales, I'm creating this total sales amount from the Superstore dataset, but I also got populated with other tables as well. So that means we can use any of these columns from the model, from any of the tables. Okay, so coming back to this, I will use sales, and from the Superstore only. Okay, I will click on this one and I will create it. So the measure will be created. Okay, so measure is created. So where it is created, as I told you, so measures won't occupy any space into your Power BI file, but we should see, right, somewhere it will be created. So let's see, this is the place. Since we have chosen this data set and we did a right click and selected this one, that's the reason the measure got created under this. The measure got created under this, and if you see here, every measure will be symboled with a calculator. Every measure that you create in a Power BI report, that will be symboled with a calculator. And what about that calculated column that we have seen? It will be with that expression. That's how you can differentiate, is it a measure or a calculated column? A measure or a calculated column. So now coming back to this measure. So let's say it is my requirement can be anything. I wanted to see reason wise sales, I wanted to see category wise sales, I wanted to see subcategory wise sales, anything, or else I wanted to see state wise sales, anything I can, or a customer wise sales. Why? Because here I have not specified anything. I just pulled the total sales, but I have not provided this total sales provide me by any of these dimensions that we have in this table. Right? That is a question, right? But measures, the beauty with measures is so powerful, and at the runtime, if you go with the customer name, it will filter the data. It will filter the data for each of the customer sales and give you the results. Let's say if you have used the dimension as a country or a city, then it will filter, the measure will filter automatically, it will filter in the reporting visual, automatically will filter or divide the total sales amount into your visual. Let's see that. So this is our reporting window, and where is our measure? Total sales, and I will select this one. Let's convert that into a tabular so that we can see the number. So what is this number? And yeah, now this is the time for you to understand the formatting options as well. So if you see here, for every visual that you select, this is one of the table visual that I have selected here. If you see here, these are the list of visuals we have, and we will talk about this. And but just try to understand, this is the visual I have selected, and when this visual is selected, I have 3 different options enabled here. Okay, so I can go with this formatting. You can see the formatting painter, right? And these are again the different categorizations, visual level properties and the general properties. Okay, so what is these properties are all about? You can apply the cosmetic changes, you can apply the formatting changes. Okay, if you see here, again these are again under the style presets. Basically under this you have a different options. Okay, all are related to the coloring and expressions. Let's say if the business asks you, like, I wanted to have a different colors, or else alternative colors in the as a background to your reporting visual, again that can be done. So this is my value, so that's the reason I came to this, that is the reason I came to this section, value section, and I will increase the size of it. If I wanted to increase the size of it, I can change the font, and I can increase the size of it. And I can make a bold of it. So these are the different colors that I can apply, or the different formatting things that I can apply. So basically what we need to do, so these are the formatting things. Okay, so so what we have seen, the total sales amount is 22 lakh 97,200, right? Again, I will create another visual, total sales, and I will choose reason. So I wanted to know the reason why sales. The reason why sales. Again, I will convert this into a table. And if you see here, again, let's increase the size of data values. So what is happening here? It is filtering the data. It is filtering the data based on the dimension that I am using in the report. So did I provide any kind of logic behind my expression? It is very simple, right? It is very simple. I haven't used any kind of a logic behind this. Did I tell to this expression that you go and use or filter the data based on the dimension that user is selecting? Or did I provide anything called reason column here? No, right? But it is doing automatically. It is doing automatically. The granularity is distributing. It is filtering the data. So, but end of the day, the total is matching out. So how it got distributed? It went to the data table. It went to the data table and filtered the data for each of the reason that I have selected. It will do the table scan. It will do the table scan and each of the data and will do the summation and will give the results to us. And how quick it is happening, the backend, just imagine. Okay, so this is what the measure is, and this is what a filter context. This is called filter context. Why? Because your data is getting filtered out based on the dimension that you are selecting. And this can be happened only with your measures, not with the calculated columns. Calculated columns are performing row by row calculation. Right? That is what we have seen, right? It is performing excuse me. Calculated columns are performing row by row operation. So that is nothing but your row context. This is nothing but our row context. Very important. Row context and filter context. Okay. So if you understand the both and the difference, then it would be very easy for us to create. So again, let me make you a little bit more information on that part. So again, let's create one more visual that provides again with the total sales. Total sales by product name. So it is too big. Let's use some other column, which is of a city. Are we good with this? Or shall we go with any category or subcategory? This is just for our understanding, nothing else. Okay, we have a 3 different categories. So let's convert this one into a table again. So the same thing. So if you see here, I will not go and do the changes what I have done here for the other visuals. I have made the changes for this font and I have done the font size, bold, colors and everything. I did it. Just imagine if I do the same similar kind of a changes as part of my visualing requirements, then I will go and do the changes, every changes in every section of it. And also I will do some other changes in the general section of it. So how much time it is taking? Let's say for suppose it is taking 1 hour for me for doing all the changes or 2 hours. Generally, that most of the time that gets killed by the formatting only in the reporting side when you work on the real time. So imagine that you have done a very beautification to your visual, and and you require the same format has to be applied to the other visuals in your report as well, other report in your visual as well, or the other visuals in your report as well. So here the beauty with Power BI is you just have to select this one and click on the format painter, and then again apply this one. Automatically this gets changed, this gets applied. You don't need to worry about anything, you don't need to. So this is the one additional or a major difference that I have seen in my experience. This option is not available in Tableau. In Tableau, everything that you wanted to apply from the beginning, for everything what you have done already for one visual, that you again have to apply it for the other visual. There is no shortcuts, there is no format painting option. Why? Because this is a Microsoft tool. So that is the beauty, or this creates a differentiator among other tools that what we have in the market. So Microsoft will apply all the shortcuts, right? One simple single click, that I selected this one and clicked on this format painter and applied it. That's it. It got changed. And if let's come back to our measure section. Okay. So if you see here, again, the data got distributed here. The data got filtered here. I would use the term called filter. The data got filtered here based on the category. Or here, what is the category? What is the region? Here, category and regions are my dimensions. The data is getting splitted, or the data is getting filtered out based on the dimension that I am using in the visual. So that is nothing but the filter context. Okay, so you may see, like, let's say I will create a calculated column. So what is the advantage here? What is the advantage here? So the measures are not creating any space. The measures are not creating any space in the Power BI report. They just created with the formula, the expression. That's it. But they are getting generated. The values are getting generated in the visual at runtime. So you may think that why we are creating a calculated column, the measure. Why can't we create a calculated column? Let's see that. Again, total sales CC, I will use calculated column, and again I will use a sum function, and sales superstore sales, and let's run this. I see. Done. It is created. So what it is created, if you see here, the number, the sum, the total sum got repeated for all the columns. Why? Because sum will perform the total sum on the entire column, and but whereas since you have created a calculated column, that since the calculated column will perform the row by row operation, so it is giving the same value for all your records. Same value for all the records. This is nothing but your row context. So what is the disadvantage with this calculation now? With this calculation, you cannot distribute the data dynamically. You cannot filter the data. Why? Because the sum already performed on the entire data set. The sum already performed on the entire data set. All the calculations, all the calculations are done. The entire summation has been done, and you have been given with. You cannot filter the data. You cannot filter the data on calculated columns. Again, let's see. If I go and use category, and again I will use this total sales, what happened? What happened? This is wrong, right? What it is doing? It is again doing the summation, on top of the summation which already done by that sum function. So this is totally incorrect. Why? Because the calculated column cannot do the filtering of the data at runtime. That cannot be done. And on top of it, what it is doing? It is doing row by row operation. It is doing the row by row operation and repeating the value for every column that we have. So that is the difference between a calculated column and a measure, and a filter context and a row context. So what is in detail, like if you talk about row context, so that we have seen row context are nothing but your calculated columns. Row context basically it's a concept basically. Okay, so that concept comes into your row by approach when you are evaluating the value row by row. So then it comes up with your row context, right? But filter context, it is not like that. It filters the data dynamically based on the dimension that you are selecting in your reporting visual. So what does it mean? When we talk about row by row, it check each condition row by row. It checks each condition row by row. So basically, as I said, like row context. So basically what will happen when we create calculated columns, the row context will be created automatically. Row context will be created automatically. You don't need to write down something to apply that row context to any of these calculator columns. Both row context and filter context, this is not that we are doing something. We just saw that calculated columns itself by default, the row context will be implemented. So when it is helpful, if I wanted to combine the data, the two, let's say like I have a full name, middle name and last name, which is coming from the source, and I need to combine the data of these three columns and wanted to display that as a full name. So again, I can go with these concatenate operators, kind of operators or the functions to create a calculated column. Okay, so also importantly, what we have seen here, let's say take an example in the sum example. So what we have seen, sum function, we can use the sum functions, right? We can use the sum functions in our calculated columns. Though we know that it is an aggregated function, but we also seen it as an example in our calculated columns, and we also seen it did not throw any error for us, but it got created, and we have seen that the incorrect results which were showing up in the visuals. But the functions, the expression which is used for calculated columns will not work for measures. Definitely, right? So I cannot go and use a dimensions inside a measure. I can use a dimension as a filter criteria in a measure. That is altogether a different concept. But I cannot use. Even if I use a dimension. How I can use? I can use this dimension with any of the aggregated functions. Either it can be a sum or it can be a count of, like that. But I cannot use a dimension directly, like as how I have used the concatenating the two columns in the calculated columns. That is not possible. Why? Because it is very simple, right? It is very simple. Why? Because since calculated columns will not work for the aggregations. Clear? Any questions? Are we good so far? So this is very important, this is very, very important. So basically calculated columns will perform row by row operations, but whereas measures will do a complete, it will scan the complete table and perform the operations like a scanning of the entire table and perform the result set, the summations or the aggregations. Are we good so far? Any questions from anyone else?
No.
Good, right? Okay, so let's also see a little bit complex in nature of the example. So what we have, this is Superstore, okay, and my requirement is display the, and let's create another page here, and I will use some kind of a text boxes. And I will write down versus previous year sales. I'm going to generate a comparison report that provides me a current and previous year sales. Okay, so this is again all of our like cosmetic changes that you can build up, and if you select this one, again you will be enabled with these properties. Okay, you can apply the effects, again background colors, background images, again you can do it, visual borders, you can do it, everything you can do it. So this is up to like depends on your designing skills. Okay, so uh, but very importantly, uh, as much as you practice, you will remember. Why? Because if you see, every option has a future. Every option has a future here. If you see here under this header icon, if I enable this one, the background colors will be enabled. So likewise, so we need to explore, definitely explore on these options. What will happen? Let's say you don't know what will happen with the effects. And if I change this color, something like this, what is happening? Effects. So the background changes the color of the background. Right? Likewise, you can do all these experiments. I mean, this is all your skills of a designing skills, basically. Okay. So this is some report which I'm creating. I wanted to generate the report based on the current year sales and the previous year sales. Okay. Current year sales and the previous year sales. So what I will do, in this, okay, let me create one thing. So what we have here, I have order date. Okay, I will go with order date wise sales. So I need to create a report where it will display the years, and the current year sales and the previous year sales. Current year sales and the previous year sales. With the help of the measure that what we have created here, that I can get it. Let's say if I select this one, order date and I will also choose the total sales. I mean, the total sales amount. So I'm getting it. So I'm good with this measure. I'm getting my date now, but I can create a calculated column. Again, now you are understanding, right? The difference of a calculated column and how we are making a use of it. So I will use a year function and I will use this order date. Okay, so that I can pull the years. This is one of the example for using a calculated columns. Why? Because we need something, a kind of a row by row operation. So it got generated with all the years. So I will go back here and instead of order date, what I will do, I will remove this order date from here, this canvas, and I will use this year function, year calculated column. So if I go and do this, and I will not use do not summarize, so that I got year wise information. Right now I'm good. Now I'm good. I got the year wise. Now I got year wise sales. But my user is asking that he wanted to know the corresponding previous year sales. He wanted to know the corresponding previous year sales as well. So how I can do it? I can do it by writing a measure, definitely, right? So let's create that and see what are the new functions, the DAX functions that we are learning as part of it. Okay. I will go with the previous year sales. Previous year sales, and I will write down a function called calculate. So calculate function is just works like it evaluates an expression. It just works like your select statement. It just works like your select statement in C. Okay, let's see what the expression it will evaluate for us. Okay, so I will go with, so what it is saying, first I need to write the expression, then after I need to apply the filter, then after I need to apply the filter. So first, what is my expression? I will use a sum function and I will take all the orders. Let's take sales. Okay, then what I will do, I will use all function. Again, this all function is again what it is take. It returns all the rows in the table. It returns all the returns. Even if you are applying some filters, that will be ignored. That will be ignored. That will not be applicable for this measure. So for that reason, I am using this all function again. So why I'm using? Why? Because I wanted to evaluate for all the
money. Yeah, money we lost the almost like
right. My bad. It's my internet issue. I think it got fluctuated. So we are good, right? You can hear me, right?
yeah.
We have everyone or we lost? Okay, we have Teja too, right? Good. So yeah, let's continue that part. Yeah. Hello, can you hear me?